Alright folks, gather around and let me hit you with a story that'll make your jaws drop. It all started when my gal, Lisa, decided to throw a curveball into our otherwise smooth relationship. We were knee-deep in wedding plans, right? I mean, you couldn't find a happier couple even if you tried. So picture this. We're browsing through flower arrangements, tasting cakes like it's a dessert Olympics, and discussing color schemes for the umpteenth time. We were basically pros at wedding planning, and our big day was just around the corner. I was stoked. But then, out of the friggin' blue, Lisa pulls me aside, looking all serious and stuff. She says, "Hey honey, I've got an idea." And I'm thinking, sure, why not? Maybe she's got some fancy honeymoon destination in mind. But oh no, it was way crazier than that. She drops the bomb, right there in the middle of the bridal boutique. She suggests we take a temporary split. I swear my jaw hit the floor so hard it could have cracked tiles. Temporary split? Like what the heck does that even mean? I'm standing there trying to process it all, and Lisa's explaining herself. She's like, "I think we should take some time apart, just to be sure we're meant for each other." Meant for each other? I thought we'd covered that territory already. We were more meant for each other than peanut butter and jelly, for crying out loud. But she had this look in her eyes, a mix of determination and doubt, and I knew she was serious. So, being the reasonable guy that I am most of the time, I said, "All right babe, if that's what you need, we can do it." I mean, what else could I say? You can't force someone to stay if they want some solo time, right? So, there it was. Our wedding plans thrown into chaos. And I was about to embark on the most confusing journey of my life. Little did I know, this was just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. Buckle up, 'cause it's gonna be a wild ride. So there I was, trying to wrap my head around this bizarre idea of a temporary split that Lisa had dropped on me. I mean, seriously, who does that in the middle of planning a wedding? She started explaining herself, like she'd become some kind of relationship guru overnight. She said she wanted to make sure we were the real deal, that our love was as solid as a rock, and that we were meant to be together. I'm thinking, ain't that what we've been doing all this time? Wedding planning and all that jazz? But no, she needed more than that. She needed time apart to, figure things out. I mean, sure, couples have their doubts sometimes, but this was like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded and wearing mittens. It just didn't make sense, so what could I do? I reluctantly agreed to this temporary split nonsense, thinking it'd be a blip on the radar. I mean, we'd been together for years, and she was my rock, my partner in crime. I couldn't imagine my life without her. But I also couldn't stand in the way of whatever this journey was supposed to be. I thought maybe she'd take a weekend getaway with her girlfriends, or we'd have a little breather while still keeping in touch. But oh no, it was more complicated than that. She packed her bags and moved in with her sister in a different city. We're talking about hundreds of miles away. The whole thing felt like a bad rom-com plot, where the couple takes a break and explores their personal growth before getting back together stronger than ever. But let me tell you, real life ain't no Hollywood movie. I watched her leave, feeling like someone had sucker punched me right in the gut. I had no idea what to expect, but one thing was for sure. This temporary split was just the beginning of a roller coaster ride I never signed up for. So grab a seat, my friends, 'cause this story is far from over. Hey there, dear readers. I hope you're as hooked on this journey as I was living it. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Subscribing will keep you in the loop, so you're always the first to know when a new chapter drops. Plus, it's a great way to support this storyteller on his quest to keep you entertained. So take a quick second to like and subscribe. Done? Awesome. Now buckle up and let's jump back into the story. The next chapter's waiting, and trust me, you don't want to miss a beat of what's coming up next. A couple of weeks into this mind-boggling temporary split with Lisa, something fishy was brewing in the background, and I was about to become the detective in my own twisted mystery story. So picture this. I'm trying to keep my cool, going about my daily routine like everything's hunky-dory. But then, out of the blue, I start hearing whispers. Gossipy cryptic whispers about someone named Mark. Who the heck was Mark, you ask? Well, I was wondering. The apparently Mark was Lisa's new friend. Yeah, you heard me right, a friend. But let me tell you, my spidey senses were tingling like crazy. I'd never heard of this guy before, and it didn't sit right with me. Suspicion started creeping in like a nosy neighbor peeking through their blinds. First, it was a casual mention from Lisa's sister, saying something like, "Oh, Mark stopped by today." I thought nothing of it, right? People have friends, no big deal, but then it became a recurring theme. Mark and I went for coffee, or Mark helped me with some stuff. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I mean, who was this Mark dude, and why was he suddenly such a big part of Lisa's life? It felt like I was in some sort of alternate universe where Mark was the new star of the show, and I was just an extra in the background. I tried to stay calm, not jump to conclusions, but it was driving me nuts. I couldn't help but think, is this what our temporary split was really about? Was she seeing someone else already? I had to know more. I couldn't just sit there twiddling my thumbs while Mark got cozy in my territory. So I did what any sane person would do. I turned into a full-fledged social media stalker. I started checking Lisa's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it, trying to find any traces of this Mark character. And let me tell you, my friends, what I found only made this whole situation even more bizarre. Mark wasn't just some random guy. He was popping up in her photos, comments, and likes like he was auditioning for a leading role in her life. I had a million questions, and not a single answer. Who was Mark? What was his deal? And most importantly, what the heck was going on in Lisa's head? It was like peeling back the layers of a very confusing onion, and I was nowhere near the core of this mystery. But hey, they say curiosity killed the cat, right? Well, this cat was about to dive headfirst into a rabbit hole of unexpected twists and turns, and I couldn't have imagined where it would lead me next. So grab your magnifying glasses, my friends, because we're just getting started in this baffling journey. So there I was, stuck in this mind-boggling maze of a temporary split with Lisa, trying to make sense of this whole Mark situation. But I wasn't about to sit idly by while my relationship was spiraling into chaos. Curiosity, my dear friends, got the best of me. I mean, who wouldn't be curious in my shoes, right? So one day, I decided to channel my inner Sherlock Holmes. I grabbed my trusty laptop, opened up Google, and started typing in Mark Lisa friend. And boom, there it was, the rabbit hole I was looking for. Mark, it turns out, was a real looker. I mean, the dude was handsome enough to make a peacock jealous. And here's the kicker, he and Lisa had been spending more time together than I'd ever spent binge-watching Netflix. My heart sank like it was on a one-way trip to the ocean floor. I couldn't believe my eyes as I scrolled through their pictures together. There they were, smiling like they'd won the lottery, taking selfies like they were auditioning for a shampoo commercial. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. After all, this was the girl I thought I was gonna marry, and now she was playing happy families with Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome. But I needed more info, right? I had to dig deeper, get to the bottom of this tangled mess. So I started checking out Mark's social media profiles. I'm talking Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. I became a certified Mark stalker. And let me tell you, the more I dug, the weirder it got. Turns out, Mark was into all these deep philosophical quotes and artsy stuff. He had this whole life is a journey vibe going on, and I couldn't help but roll my eyes. It was like he was auditioning for the lead role in a pretentious indie movie. But the real kicker was when I stumbled upon a post where Mark was talking about finding his muse or some crap like that. And guess who his muse was? You got it, my ex, Lisa. I couldn't believe my eyes. The dude had turned my girl into his artistic inspiration or some nonsense. So there I was sitting in front of my laptop, feeling like I just walked into a parallel universe. My girl had become someone else's muse while I was busy playing detective. It was like something out of a bizarre soap opera. But I still had no idea what was really going on. Why had Lisa gone from planning our wedding to becoming this Mark guy's muse? And where did that leave me in this crazy love triangle? The only thing I knew for sure was that things were about to get a whole lot messier. And I was in way over my head. So stay tuned, my friends, because this roller coaster ride was just getting started. So after weeks of snooping around and turning into a full-blown detective, I decided it was time to face the music. I couldn't just sit around and watch my girl Lisa turn into some other dude's muse without a fight. I mustered up all the courage I had left, which wasn't much to be honest. And I decided to confront Lisa about this Mark character. I figured it was high time we had a heart-to-heart about the whole mess. After all, we'd been through thick and thin together, and we owed each other that much. So there I am sitting Lisa down trying to keep my cool while my heart's racing faster than a NASCAR car. I'm like, Lisa, we need to talk. And she's looking all nervous, like she's about to face a firing squad or something. I didn't beat around the bush. I went straight for the jugular. I asked her about Mark, about the whole muse thing, and about why the heck she turned our relationship into something straight out of a cheesy soap opera. And you won't believe what she said next, my friends. She dropped the bombshell of all bombshells. Lisa, my girl, the one I thought I was gonna marry, admitted that she developed feelings for Mark during our little temporary split escapade. I swear it was like a punch to the gut, a knockout blow from out of nowhere. I couldn't believe my ears. My world crumbled faster than a sandcastle at high tide. I was left sitting there feeling like the protagonist in some melodramatic telenovela. Lisa tried to explain herself, saying that it was all so unexpected, that she never meant for it to happen. But the damage was done, my friends. She'd fallen for Mark, and there was no going back. I didn't know what to say, what to do. It was like my entire world had been turned upside down in the blink of an eye. The wedding plans, the future we'd envisioned together, it all crumbled to dust. I had a mix of emotions raging inside me. Anger, sadness, and this weird feeling of betrayal. I mean, we'd been through thick and thin together. And now she was telling me she'd fallen for another guy during our break. As I sat there listening to Lisa's words, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd been living in some kind of fairy tale, where love conquers all and happily ever after is a guarantee. But real life, my friends, real life can be a real kick in the gut sometimes. And just like that, my story took an unexpected twist that I never saw coming. Lisa and I decided to call off the wedding. It was like our love story had turned into a Shakespearean tragedy, and I was left wondering what the heck had happened to the life I thought I was going to have. But little did I know this twist was just the beginning of a roller coaster ride that would take me to places I never imagined. So grab your popcorn, folks, because we're just getting started on this wild journey. So after that heart-wrenching chat with Lisa, where she confessed her feelings for Mark, we both decided it was time to hit the brakes on the wedding train. Yeah, you heard me right. We called it off. Now, I won't lie, it was like tearing a piece of my soul out and tossing it into the Grand Canyon. But deep down, we both knew it was the right thing to do. Lisa needed to explore this new connection she had with Mark, and I needed to pick up the pieces of my broken heart and move on. It was tough, my friends, like trying to untangle a knot in a giant ball of yarn. We'd invested so much time, energy, and emotion into our relationship, and it felt like we were throwing it all away. But sometimes, life throws you curveballs, and you've got to adjust your swing. We had to deal with all the logistics of canceling the wedding, the venue, the invitations, the caterer. It was a logistical nightmare, let me tell you. But we powered through it like two soldiers trying to survive a battlefield of cancelled plans and shattered dreams. The worst part was telling our friends and family. They'd been so excited about our wedding, and now we had to break the news that it wasn't happening. The pitying looks, the awkward condolences, it was like attending our own funeral. But we both knew it was the right decision. Lisa needed to see where things would go with Mark, and I needed to figure out who I was without her. It was like hitting the reset button on my life, and it was scary as hell. So there we were, two people who were once inseparable, going our separate ways. It was like the end of an era, the closing credits on a movie I never wanted to end. But life has a funny way of making you reevaluate things, and as painful as it was also a chance to start fresh. I won't lie, the days that followed were some of the loneliest of my life. I'd go to bed at night, and it felt like there was this massive hole in my heart, a void where Lisa used to be. But I knew I had to keep moving forward, one step at a time. And little did I know that this new reality, this fresh start, would lead me down a path I never expected. It was like I was entering a whole new chapter in my life, and I had no idea what twists and turns were waiting for me. So grab your tissues and brace yourselves, my friends, because this story is far from over. So life moved on, and I found myself spending more time with you guys, my trusty group of friends. You know, trying to drown my sorrows in beers, shooting the breeze, and pretending like everything was back to normal. We'd hit up our local joint like it was our second home. And let me tell you, that place had seen its fair share of my post-breakup therapy sessions. So there I was, nursing a cold one, and trying to forget about Lisa and the whole wedding disaster. But then, out of the blue, life decided to throw another curveball my way, I swear. It was like the universe had a twisted sense of humor. I was just minding my own business, sipping my brewski, when I bumped into this intriguing woman named Sarah. Now Sarah, my friends, was something else. She had this undeniable spark about her, the kind that draws you in like a moth to a flame. We started chatting, just casual conversation at first. You know, the usual small talk about the weather, sports, and whatnot. But there was something different about the way we connected. It was like we were both speaking a secret language that only we understood. Our banter flowed effortlessly, like we'd known each other for ages, even though it was the first time we'd met. As the night went on, we delved into deeper conversations. Dreams, aspirations, and the weird quirks that make us who we are. It was like we were peeling back the layers of our souls, revealing our innermost thoughts and fears. I couldn't help but feel this electric chemistry between us, like we were two magnets irresistibly drawn together. It had been so long since I'd felt that kind of connection, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time. I couldn't deny it, my friends. I was starting to develop feelings for Sarah. But it was also complicated. I mean, I'd just come out of a roller coaster of a relationship with Lisa, and now I was on the brink of something new and unexpected. So there I was, caught in this whirlwind of emotions, trying to navigate uncharted waters. It was like I was at a crossroads, and I had to decide whether to follow this intriguing path with Sarah, or play it safe and stick to what I knew. But one thing was for sure. That chance encounter with Sarah was about to send my life down a completely different trajectory. Little did I know that this spark, this connection, would lead to a series of events that would make even the wildest roller coaster seem tame. So get ready, my friends, 'cause things are about to get even more interesting. So remember Sarah, that intriguing woman I met at our local joint? Well, turns out she had her own history with Mark. Yeah, the same Mark that Lisa had fallen for. But here's the kicker. It wasn't what you'd expect. So Sarah and I had been hitting it off, getting closer by the day. And then one evening, as we're sitting at our favorite spot, she drops this bombshell on me. She'd been friends with Mark for years, like way before he even popped up on Lisa's radar. I was like, wait, hold up, rewind, you mean to tell me you know Mark? And Sarah's nodding, like it's no big deal. She starts telling me about their history, how they'd been buddies for ages, and how she'd seen Mark in all his glory, both the good and the bad. But then she hits me with something that I never saw coming. She says, "You know Mark's a bit of a player, right?" My eyes must have looked like saucers at that point. I mean, I'd had my suspicions about the guy, but to hear it from someone who'd known him for years? That was a whole new level of shock. Sarah spills the beans about Mark's reputation. Turns out he had a long list of conquests, and Lisa was just another name on that list. I couldn't believe it. My girl, the one I thought was head over heels in love with Mark, was just another player in his little game. It was like the pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. But the picture they painted was not what I expected. Here I was, thinking Mark was some kind of Casanova. And it turns out he was just a smooth-talking heartbreaker. Sarah and I spent hours talking about Mark, dissecting his MO, and sharing stories about his not-so-great track record with women. It was like peeling back the layers of an onion and discovering the rotten core inside. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that I wasn't the only one who'd fallen for his charm. Anger at Mark for playing with people's hearts. And disbelief that Lisa had gotten tangled up in all of this. But the biggest surprise of all? Sarah and I grew even closer through this revelation. It was like we were bonding over our shared experience with Mark, and our connection deepened even more. So there you have it, my friends, a surprising twist in the tale. Mark wasn't the Prince Charming I'd imagined, and Lisa's whirlwind romance with him was starting to look like a bad decision. But where did this leave me and Sarah? Well, that's a story for the next chapter, so stay tuned. 'Cause things are about to get even more complicated. Things took a dark turn, let me tell you. Lisa, being the smart cookie she was, started putting two and two together. She began digging into Mark's shady past and unraveling the web of deceit he'd spun around her. And guess what? She found evidence of his other relationships, if you can even call them that. Lisa was devastated, heartbroken, and honestly pretty darn angry. I mean, who wouldn't be? She confronted Mark about his deceit. And let's just say, it didn't end well for him. Lisa kicked him to the curb faster than you can say player. The dude got what he deserved, but it was still a mess of epic proportions. Now here's where things get even crazier. Lisa, realizing her mistake, tried to reach out to me. She wanted to talk, to apologize, to see if there was any chance of salvaging what we had. But guess what, my friends? By that time, I'd already moved on with Sarah. Yep, I'd taken a leap of faith with Sarah, started a new chapter in my life. And things were going surprisingly well. But when Lisa reached out, it was like a tornado of emotions and drama came crashing down on me. I didn't know what to do, who to choose, where to turn. It was like I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, torn between my past and this newfound connection with Sarah. In the end, I had to make a choice. And I chose to stick with Sarah. I mean, we'd built something special, and I couldn't just throw it all away, right? But it wasn't easy. Breaking the news to Lisa, the girl I'd thought I'd marry, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And so, my friends, that's how this crazy story comes to a close. Lisa lost everything. The love she thought she found, her once happy life, and her trust in people like Mark. As for me, I found an unexpected love story with Sarah, but it wasn't without its doubts and second-guessing. Life can be one heck of a ride, my friends, full of surprises and twists you never see coming. It's a reminder that sometimes the path you end up on is far from the one you planned, and you just have to hold on and enjoy the journey. So here's to unexpected love stories, to life's crazy twists, and to the friends who stick by your side through it all. Cheers, guys. Man, I gotta tell y'all. The day Shelley hit me with the "I need a break" line, I was like a deer in headlights. There we were, sipping coffee on a lazy Sunday. The sun was shining, birds chirping, a picture-perfect day, right? Then bam, she drops this bombshell. She's all Barry, I need some time to figure stuff out. Gonna stay with my folks for a bit. I'm sitting there, coffee halfway to my mouth, frozen. A break, I ask. That word, break, it's like a sledgehammer to a glass house. I mean, we've had our ups and downs, sure, but this? This was out of left field. Shelley, she's fiddling with her cup, avoiding my eyes. I need some space, Barry, to sort out my feelings. Her voice is steady, but I can tell she's not 100% on this. There's this tremble, see, a little quiver that says she's as scared as I am. I'm trying to keep cool, but inside, I'm a mess. And what about loyalty, huh? You planning on staying true during this break? I'm grappling for something, anything to make sense of it all. Shelley sighs, this long, heavy sigh that seems to pull the air out of the room. I don't know, Barry. Maybe I need to explore. Other things. Other things. That phrase hits me like a punch in the gut. The trade, that's what I feel. Here I was, thinking we were solid, and she's out there wanting to explore. I'm trying to process this, but it's like my brain's stuck in a loop. Break, explore, betrayal. Next thing I know, I'm in my office, papers spread out in front of me. Legal stuff, separation papers, my hands shaking as I fill them out, it's like I'm on autopilot, you know? Part of me thinks this is just a phase, we'll laugh about it someday. But the other part, the louder part, is prepping for the worst. Divorce bill, population, me. Shelley's watching me from the doorway, her face all crumpled up like she's about to cry. But she doesn't say anything, just turns and walks away. And I'm there, pen in hand, signing away the life we built together. Crazy how quick things can change, huh? Looking back, I can't help but wonder if I overreacted. Maybe I should have fought for us, for her. But in that moment, all I could see was the end of the road. The end of us. And man, that was a tough pill to swallow. All right, so let me paint you the picture of what went down after Shelley dropped her "I need a break" bomb. Things spiraled, and fast. I mean, 1 minute we're talking about needing space, and the next, it's like we're in the middle of a hurricane. It was a Tuesday, a couple of days after the big announcement. The tension in the house was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I'm pacing around, thinking, stewing. Every time I look at Shelley, I'm reminded of the break, and man, it burns. I've got all these emotions bubbling up, anger, confusion, a bit of fear, you know? It's like a cocktail of feelings, and not the good kind. So, I'm standing in our bedroom, looking at all of Shelley's stuff. Her clothes, her books, those little trinkets she loves so much, and something in me just snaps. I start grabbing her things, not even thinking, and before I know it, I've piled up half her wardrobe and all those knickknacks she's collected over the years. I haul everything to the spare room, just dumping it all in there. It's chaotic, a mess, but in that moment, it feels right. Like I'm physically moving her out of my life. I'm sweating, out of breath, but there's this weird sense of accomplishment, too. Then I see her, standing in the doorway, her face a mix of shock and hurt. You should leave, I blurt out. It's harsh, colder than I intended, but it's out there, hanging in the air between us. Shelley looks like I've just slapped her, she opens her mouth, but no words come out. She just stares at the pile of her belongings, then at me, and I can see it in her eyes, she's realizing this is serious, way more serious than she thought. For a moment, I regret it, want to take it all back, tell her it's just a stupid fight. But I don't, I can't, there's this pride, this hurt that's holding me back. So we just stand there, in this silent standoff, the weight of what I've done pressing down on me. That night, Shelley sleeps in the spare room, among her scattered belongings. There's this unspoken agreement that we're in separate worlds now, even under the same roof. The house feels emptier, colder. I toss and turn, can't sleep, it's like every creak, every whisper of the house is reminding me of what's happening. In the days that follow, we're like ghosts, passing each other without a word. The air is filled with unsaid things, regrets, maybe even a bit of longing. But neither of us breaks the silence. It's like we're stuck in this dance, too stubborn or scared to make the first move. And then, one morning, I wake up to find a note on the kitchen counter. It's from Shelley, gone to my parents, it says. Just those 4 words, but they hit me like a ton of bricks. It's real now, she's really gone. That day, the house feels even more hollow. I wander from room to room, looking at the spaces she used to fill. Her perfume lingers in the air, a reminder of what's missing. I sit on the couch, the same spot where we've laughed, argued, made up, and I realize how much of us is woven into every corner of this place. I think about calling her, but my pride gets in the way. She left, remember? I tell myself. But, deep down, I'm wondering if I pushed her too far, if I've broken something that can't be fixed. It's a scary thought, being the architect of your own misery. So there you have it, the escalation. A series of small steps leading to a big fall. It's funny, how quickly things can change. One day you're planning your future, and the next, you're wondering if you even have one together. That's life, I guess, unpredictable, messy, and sometimes a little heartbreaking. Once Shelley left and the house got all quiet, it's like my brain switched into overdrive. I had all this time to think, to reflect, and man, did the thoughts come flooding in. There I was, in our big, empty house, just me and my thoughts. And they were all about Shelley, how she changed, how we changed. You see, a while back, Shelley went on this health kick. She lost a bunch of weight, started dressing differently, kinda morphed into this whole new person. At first, I was proud, Proud of her for taking control, getting healthy. But I didn't realize how much those changes would affect us, our relationship. I'd catch myself looking at old photos, back when we were younger, a bit chubbier, but man, we were happy. There was this light in her eyes, a spark. Now, it felt like that spark was fading, getting lost in her new lifestyle, her new self. Our conversations changed, too. They became more superficial, more about her fitness routine, her diet. I tried to keep up, be supportive, but I felt left behind. Like she was on this express train to a new life, and I was still waiting at the station. Then there were the little things, her laughter, which used to fill the room, now seemed forced, rare. The way she'd turn away slightly when I tried to hug her. Small things, but they added up, gnawing at me. Sitting in that silent house, I started to wonder where it all went wrong. Were we ever really happy, or were we just comfortable? Did I miss some signs, some cries for help? You start questioning everything, doubting every memory, every moment. I remember walking through the house, room by room, seeing traces of her everywhere. Her books on the shelf, her perfume in the bathroom, her gardening gloves on the porch. It was like she was still there, but not really. It was this constant reminder of what I'd lost, what we'd lost. Nights were the hardest. The bed felt too big, too empty. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying our last conversations, trying to figure out where things took a turn. It's funny how solitude can mess with your mind, make you see things in a different light. Then there were moments of anger, of bitterness. Why did she leave? Why wasn't I enough? But those moments would fade, replaced by this dull ache, this sense of loss. It's like I was mourning, not just for our relationship, but for the woman I fell in love with, who now seemed like a stranger to me. I started doing things to keep busy, to fill the silence. I'd work late, hit the gym, anything to avoid coming home to an empty house. But no matter how busy I got, there was always that moment when I'd walk through the door, and the reality would hit me all over again. It's weird, how you can be surrounded by people, by noise, by life, and still feel so utterly alone. That's what those days were like. A constant battle between wanting to remember and wanting to forget. Between holding on and letting go. In those quiet moments, I realized how much I depended on Shelley, not just for love or companionship, but for my identity. Without her, I was like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly. It was a wake-up call, a harsh reminder that I needed to find myself again, find my own happiness. So that's Chapter 3, Reflections in Solitude. A time of introspection, of confronting some hard truths, and of slowly, painfully, starting to piece together a life without Shelley. It's a journey, man, and let me tell you, it's not an easy one. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five, telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. So, take a quick second to like and subscribe. Done? Awesome. So, Shelley's over at her folks', right? And she's trying to get used to this whole, newly single, free as a bird, vibe. But let me tell y'all, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows for her. There she is, in her old room, surrounded by memories of her teenage years, and it's like she's gone back in time. But not in a good way. It's more like she's stuck in this weird limbo, halfway between the past and the present. And those doubts, man, they start creeping in, gnawing at her. She's got all this time to think, too much time, really. And her mind, it keeps circling back to Malia and Sasha, our kids. She's missing their school plays, their little squabbles, the way Sasha's nose crinkles when she laughs, or Malia's endless questions about everything under the sun. It hits her hard, the reality of what she's left behind. And it's not just the kids. It's the life we built together, the routines, the inside jokes, the lazy Sundays in bed. She's out there trying to figure herself out, but she's starting to wonder if she left a part of herself back with us. Then there's the whole thing with her parents. They're trying to be supportive, sure, but there's this unspoken tension. Like, they're wondering why she's thrown a perfectly good marriage into the wind. And Shelley, she feels it, feels their confusion, their disappointment. So, she's sitting there at the dinner table, pushing food around her plate, and it's like she's a stranger in her own life. She's questioning everything, her decisions, her desires, her future. It's a mess of what-ifs and should-haves. Nights are the worst for her. She's lying in her childhood bed, staring at the ceiling, and the silence is deafening. She's used to the sound of my snoring, the soft breathing of the kids down the hall. Now, all she's got is the ticking of the old clock on the wall, each tick a reminder of the time she's losing, the moment slipping away. She starts doing these long walks, just wandering around her old neighborhood, trying to clear her head. But everywhere she looks, there are reminders of the past, of simpler times. It's like she's haunted by the ghost of her former self, the girl who had all these dreams and aspirations, before life got complicated. And in those quiet moments, when she's all alone with her thoughts, the regret really starts to sink in. What have I done? She asks herself. She's made this big, bold move, sure, but at what cost? She's got freedom, yeah, but it's a lonely kind of freedom, the kind that feels more like isolation than liberation. So that's Chapter 4, Doubts and Regrets. It's all about Shelley grappling with the consequences of her decision, realizing that maybe, just maybe, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. It's a tough pill to swallow, realizing you might have made a mistake, especially when there's no easy way to fix it. But that's life, right? A series of choices, some good, some not so good, and learning to live with them. Now, this is where things start getting a bit more, let's say, intense. I'm not the kind of guy to just sit on my hands, you know? With Shelley gone and the house feeling more like a ghost town every day, I figured it was time to make some moves. First things first, the assets. I'm no Scrooge, but I've worked hard for what we have, and the thought of losing half of everything to a maybe divorce? Yeah, that didn't sit well with me. So, I got myself a lawyer, a real shark, and we started locking things down. Bank accounts, the house, investments, you name it, we secured it. Might sound harsh, but in times like these, you gotta protect your turf. But that wasn't the hardest part. No, sir, the real kicker was the kids, Malia and Sasha. They're my world, and the thought of them getting caught in the crossfire of a messy split? Unthinkable. So, I'm pushing for full custody. It's not that I want to cut Shelley out, but I can't have them bouncing back and forth like ping-pong balls. They need stability, a routine, and I'm hell-bent on giving it to them. Now, about that work trip. It's been on the cards for a while, a big project overseas, a real career maker. But with everything going on, it felt like the perfect opportunity for a fresh start, a chance to get away from all the drama. So, I pull some strings, get the okay to take Malia and Sasha with me. A working holiday, sort of. The kids are psyched, new places, new faces. For me, it's a bit more complicated. Sure, it's a chance to bond, make some memories, but it's also me stepping into this new role, single dad, globetrotter, Mr. Independent. It's exciting, but daunting as hell. Prepping for the trip was a whirlwind. Passports, tickets, packing, it's like a military operation. And the whole time, I'm trying to keep things light, fun, but inside, I'm a jumble of nerves. This trip, it's not just a getaway, it's a statement. I'm showing Shelley, the kids, the world, that I can handle this, that I'm not just going to crumble and fade away. The night before we leave, I'm tucking the kids into bed, and Sasha, she's got this worried look in her eyes. Will mommy be okay without us? She asks. Man, that hit me right in the feels. I tell her mommy's going to be just fine, that we're all going to be just fine. But as I'm saying it, I'm wondering the same thing myself. So, we set off, the three of us, off on this adventure. And as the plane takes off, I'm looking out the window, watching the ground slip away, and it's like I can feel the weight lifting. We're starting over, in a way. A new chapter, a chance to rewrite our story. It's scary, yeah, but it's also kind of exhilarating. Shelley, she's having this big epiphany over at her parents', realizing maybe she's made a major mistake. So, she's thinking she can just waltz back in and patch things up. She calls me up, her voice all shaky, saying she wants to talk. I'm like, okay, let's hear it. So, she comes over. She's looking different, more like the Shelley I knew, but there's this nervousness about her. She starts with this big apology, saying she's missed me, the kids, the life we had. She's going on about how she's seen the error of her ways, wants to make it right. And I'm just sitting there, nodding, but inside, I'm feeling all sorts of twisted. Here's the thing: while she was out, finding herself, I wasn't just moping around. I'd started seeing Hillary, my best friend since forever. Hillary, she'd been there through the thick and thin, and somewhere along the line, things between us changed. It wasn't planned, it just happened. So, when Shelley's pouring her heart out, I'm thinking of Hillary and how she's been my rock through all this. I let Shelley finish, and then I lay it out for her. I tell her about Hillary, how we're a thing now, you should have seen her face. It's like I'd hit her with a sledgehammer. She's stammering, asking if I'm serious, and I'm like, yeah, I am. The air in the room got real heavy then. Shelley's looking at me, her eyes welling up, and I'm feeling this mix of guilt and relief. Yeah, relief that I'm finally being honest, with her, with myself. Then I hit her with another bombshell, the divorce papers. I'd had them drawn up, ready to go. It wasn't an easy decision, but with everything that had gone down, it felt like the only way forward. Shelley's looking at the papers like they're some sort of alien artifact. She's lost for words, and frankly, so am I. It was one of those pivotal moments, you know? She's realizing that it's really over, that there's no going back. And I'm seeing this chapter of my life closing right in front of me. It was sad, sure, but also kind of freeing. We talk a bit more, mostly logistics about the kids and how we're gonna handle things moving forward. It's all very civil, but there's this undercurrent of, I don't know, finality? Like we both know this is the end of the road for us. Shelley leaves, and the house is quiet again, but it's a different kind of quiet now. It's more like peace, or maybe acceptance. The storm has passed, and there's this sense of calm, of moving on. So, there we were, me, Hillary, Malia, and Sasha, embarking on this new journey abroad. It felt like stepping into a different world, a fresh start. Everything was new, the sights, the sounds, the smells. We landed in this beautiful, bustling city, full of life and energy. It was exactly what we needed, a total change of scenery. The kids, they adapted faster than I thought. Malia, she's got this adventurous spirit, always curious, always exploring. And Sasha, she's more reserved but finding her own way, making friends at the new school. Watching them, it filled me with this mix of pride and relief. They were okay, more than okay, they were thriving. Hillary, she was incredible through it all. She had this way of making anywhere feel like home. She'd cook up these meals, a blend of our old life and the new, and we'd sit around the table in our new apartment, laughing and sharing stories. It felt right, like we were building something special, something real. Work was intense, but rewarding. I was putting in long hours, but I was doing something I believed in, something that mattered. And coming home to Hillary and the kids, that was the best part of my day. We'd have these little rituals, like game nights or movie evenings, and it was like we were weaving this new tapestry of family life. Then, there's the big news, me and Hillary, we decided to tie the knot. It wasn't a big, fancy affair, just something small and intimate. The kids were ecstatic, seeing us take this step, officially becoming a family. It was a beautiful day, full of love and laughter, a celebration of new beginnings. Life kept moving, and before we knew it, there was another addition to our family, a little one. Man. Holding that baby for the first time, it's a feeling I can't even describe. It was like a piece of the puzzle we didn't even know was missing clicked into place. Malia and Sasha, they were over the moon, doting on their new sibling every chance they got. Our new life, it was full of challenges, sure, but also full of joy and growth. We were blending our past with our present, creating something unique, something ours. We'd FaceTime with Shelley regularly, keeping her in the loop, making sure the kids stayed connected. It wasn't always easy, but it was important. The city, with its vibrant culture and diverse community, became our playground. We'd explore on weekends, discovering hidden gems, learning and growing together. It was an adventure, every single day. And as I'd watch the sunset from our balcony, the city lights twinkling below, I'd think about the journey that got us here. It was wild, unpredictable, sometimes painful, but it led us to this place, this moment. And I was grateful for all of it, the good, the bad, the in-between. So, there's Shelley, back in her hometown, living a life she thought she wanted. But it's not all it's cracked up to be. She's got a lot of time on her hands, and you know what they say about idle minds. Hers is a whirlwind of thoughts, regrets, and what-ifs. She's watching from afar, seeing snippets of our new life on social media, the updates, the photos. And each one is like a little jab, a reminder of what she's missing out on. She sees pictures of Malia's birthday party, Sasha's soccer games, and it hits her heart. She's missing milestones, everyday moments, and it's eating her up inside. She tries to keep busy, throws herself into work, hobbies, anything to fill the void. But the silence of her apartment is deafening. It's in these quiet moments that the weight of her choices really sinks in. Her friends, they try to be supportive, tell her she did the right thing, following her heart and all that. But deep down, she's not so sure. She starts to realize that in chasing after something different, something she thought she wanted, she lost everything that truly mattered, her family, her home, the love and life she built with us. She's got this box of memories, photos, little keepsakes from our life together. Sometimes, she'll pull it out, sift through it. It's a bittersweet ritual, a walk down memory lane, but each step is laced with regret. And then there are the nights, the hardest part. She's lying in bed, the room dark, and her mind won't shut off. She replays everything, the good times, the bad, the mundane. She thinks about the holidays we spent together, the quiet mornings, the lazy Sundays. It's like a movie playing on loop, and she's both the star and the audience. She wonders about the kids, how they're doing, really doing. Sure, she talks to them, video calls, but it's not the same. She's missing the little things. The way Malia scrunches her nose when she's thinking hard, Sasha's infectious giggle. It's those everyday moments that she craves, the ones you don't realize are important until they're gone. She starts to understand that happiness isn't always about chasing the new or the exciting. Sometimes, it's about appreciating what you have, cherishing the mundane, finding joy in the familiar. It's a hard lesson, learned too late. She's left with her thoughts, her regrets, and the painful understanding that some choices can't be undone. There's no reset button in life, no going back to fix the mistakes. Man, you wouldn't believe the curveball life threw at me. So, there we were, a month into being parents. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, and that baby smell, you know, a mix of milk and, well, more bodily stuff. Life was a blur, but hey, I was a dad, and that was pretty cool. Then one evening, out of the blue, my wife, Jenna, she drops this bomb on me. We're doing the usual, sipping lukewarm coffee, half watching some show while the baby's finally snoozing. And she says, I think we should have an open marriage. I almost spit my coffee. Come again, I ask, thinking I misheard over the baby monitor's static. Nope, heard her right. Jenna, looking serious as a judge, repeats it. She wants an open marriage. Says she's been feeling different, needs more than what we've got. It's not about love, she says. I just need to explore, find myself. I'm sitting there, trying to wrap my head around this. We'd been the high school sweethearts, the perfect couple. And now this? I loved her, man. But this? This was a whole different ballgame. Was it me, was it the baby, had I missed some signs? My mind was racing a mile a minute. I felt like someone had pulled the rug out from under me. Here I was, thinking we're settling into this new chapter as parents, and she's on a completely different page. I didn't even know what to say. So, I didn't say much. Just nodded, muttered something about needing to think. And think I did. All night, staring at the ceiling, Jenna asleep next to me, as if she hadn't just turned our world upside down. The next few days were awkward. We were like those old sitcoms where the couple dance around the big elephant in the room. Except, it wasn't funny. It was my life, crumbling. And I had no idea what to do about it. But then, things took another turn. Remember the neighbor I mentioned, Mr. Mysterious? Yeah. Well, he's about to play a big part in this whole mess. But that's a story for another chapter. After that bombshell Jenna dropped on me, I was a mess. Needed to clear my head. So, I started taking these long walks around the neighborhood. It was on one of these walks that I bumped into him, Mr. Mysterious, as I later dubbed him. This guy, he's lived a few doors down for years, but we never really talked, you know? Just the usual nods and, morning, greetings. But that day, he was outside, tending to his roses. Yeah, roses. Who knew? So, I'm walking by, lost in my thoughts, and he calls out, tough times, huh? I'm taken aback, how does he know? I force a smile, thinking it's just neighborly small talk. But then he goes, marriage is like a rose garden. Needs care, or it withers. I stop in my tracks. It's like he's reading my mind. We get to talking. He's got this calm way about him, and before I know it, I'm spilling my guts, the open marriage request, my confusion, everything. He listens, just nodding, his eyes never leaving mine. Then, he starts talking, giving me this advice, but it's all riddles and metaphors. He says things like, sometimes the path you're on needs a detour to get to where you really need to go. I'm like, what does that even mean? But the way he says it, so sure and wise, I can't help but ponder over his words. And get this, he knows stuff about me. Little details. How I used to play guitar in college, my fear of heights, stuff I never told him. It's eerie, but also, I don't know, comforting? Like he's been watching over me or something. Every day, I find myself drawn to those chats. He's always there, same time, same spot, like he's waiting for me. And every day, he drops these cryptic nuggets of wisdom. Look beyond the horizon of your troubles, he'd say. Or, the heart's compass rarely points in a straight line. I start looking forward to our talks. They're the only thing that makes sense in my topsy-turvy world. But it's weird, right? This near stranger suddenly becoming a confidant? Anyway, things at home are still strained. Jenna's caught up in her new freedom, barely home. And here I am, finding solace in cryptic advice from a neighbor who knows too much. Life's strange, man. Well, they got me thinking. Maybe I didn't know Jenna as well as I thought. So, I did what any confused husband would do, I turned detective. It started with small stuff. Digging through old photo albums, reading her old diary, yeah, I know, not cool, but man, I was desperate. Nothing much there, just typical teenage angst and stuff about her college days. But then, I hit pay dirt. I found this box tucked away in the back of our closet. Inside, there were letters, photos, stuff I'd never seen before. Pictures of Jenna with some guy, looking cozy. Love letters, not written by me. My heart's pounding as I'm reading these, feeling like a total idiot. Turns out, this guy was Jenna's college sweetheart. Someone she never mentioned. The letters were all lovey-dovey, full of plans for the future. The last letter, though, was different. The guy was moving away, wanted Jenna to come with him. But she didn't go. This got me thinking. What if Jenna's request for an open marriage wasn't about me? What if it was about this long-lost love? So, I did more digging. Social media stalking, talking to some of her old friends, under the guise of planning a surprise party, clever, right? And I start piecing together this other life Jenna had, one she buried when she married me. Turns out, she never got over this guy. He was her, what if? And then, the kicker, he moved back to town recently. Bingo. It was like a puzzle coming together, but each piece was a punch in the gut. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, was practically a stranger. I confronted her with what I found. She broke down, admitted everything. Said she loved me but always wondered, what if? She thought an open marriage might let her explore these old feelings without losing me and our daughter. Man. Talk about a gut-wrenching revelation. I was angry, hurt, lost. But at the same time, it was like a weight lifted. I finally understood, it wasn't about me or us, it was about her unresolved past. So, there I was, my marriage in shambles, my wife longing for another man. And through all this, Mr. Mysterious is still there, offering his cryptic advice. Sometimes the hardest paths lead to the brightest destinations, he'd say. I didn't know what my destination was anymore, but I knew I had a long, hard path ahead. Dear readers, I hope you're as hooked on this journey as I was living it. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five, telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Subscribing will keep you in the loop, so you're always the first to know when a new chapter drops. Plus, it's a great way to support this storyteller on his quest to keep you entertained. So, take a quick second to like and subscribe. Done? Awesome. Now, buckle up and let's jump back into the story. The next chapter's waiting, and trust me, you don't want to miss a beat of what's coming up next. Alright, so we're at the point where I've just uncovered all this stuff about Jenna and her past. My head's spinning, and I'm like a pot about to boil over. I had to confront her, you know? Get it all out in the open. So, one evening, I wait for her to come home. She walks in, all tired from her day, and I'm just sitting there, this box of her past life on the table. Her eyes go wide when she sees it, and I can tell she knows what's coming. What's this, Jenna? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. She starts with the, oh, that's nothing, but I cut her off. Don't, I say, just don't. Then it all comes pouring out. She admits to everything, the old boyfriend, the letters, the feelings she never resolved. I'm sitting there, listening to her spill secrets like they're confessions, and I'm trying to keep it together. It's like I'm hearing about a different person, not my Jenna. She's crying now, saying she never meant to hurt me. She just didn't know how to deal with these old feelings. I thought I could have both, she says. Explore my past without losing my present. I'm torn, man. Part of me is furious, feeling betrayed. The other part, well, it kind of gets it. We've all got what ifs, right? But acting on them, that's a whole other story. The air's thick with all this emotion, and I'm struggling to breathe. I tell her I need time. Need to figure out what all this means for us, for our family. She nods, tears streaming down her face, and I just walk out. I spend the night wandering the streets, lost in my thoughts. I end up at Mr. Mysterious' place, the only light on in the neighborhood. He's there, as if he's been waiting for me. I tell him everything, and he listens, that same calm look on his face. Sometimes the heart needs to break to let the light in, he says. I'm not in the mood for riddles, but his words, they kind of make sense. I head back home as the sun's coming up, feeling exhausted but clearer. Jen is there, asleep on the sofa, waiting for me. I don't wake her, I just watch her for a while, thinking about all we've been through. Man, life's complicated, love's complicated. I thought I had it all figured out, but turns out, I'm just as lost as anyone else. My late-night rose-tending, cryptic advice-giving neighbor? Turns out, he's more than just a guy with a green thumb and a knack for riddles. The day after that emotional showdown with Jenna, I'm back at Mr. Mysterious' place. We're sitting in his backyard, surrounded by those roses he cares for so much, and I'm pouring my heart out. I'm talking about Jenna, the open marriage thing, my feelings, the whole 9 yards. Out of nowhere, he goes, you know, I've been where you are. I look at him, really look at him for the first time. There's something familiar in his eyes, but I can't place it. He starts telling me his story, and dude, it's like listening to a mirror of my own. He'd loved and lost, been betrayed, gone through a rough patch, just like me. But he found a way to move on, found peace. How, I ask, desperate for some of that peace myself? He smiles, this sad but knowing smile, and says, by letting go. By understanding that some things are out of our control, easy for him to say, right? But the way he says it, I believe him. Then, he drops the bombshell. I knew your father, he says. My father, the man I barely remember, who passed away when I was just a kid. Turns out, Mr. Mysterious and my dad were close friends, like brothers. He'd been keeping an eye on me, sort of watching over me from a distance, ever since my dad died. Mind blown. It's like all the pieces of a puzzle falling into place. The familiarity, the knowing too much about me, the cryptic advice, it all makes sense now. This guy, he wasn't just a neighbor. He was a connection to my past, to my dad. We talk for hours. He tells me stories about my dad, stuff I never knew. It's like he's giving me a piece of my history back, filling in blanks I didn't even know were there. And his advice, it starts making more sense. He's not just spouting riddles, he's passing on wisdom, stuff he learned the hard way, stuff my dad would have wanted me to know. I leave his place feeling lighter than I have in weeks. It's not like all my problems have vanished, but I've got this new perspective, you know? Like I'm not alone in this. I've got this guardian angel, this link to my dad, looking out for me. Life's still messy, and Jenna and we've got a long road ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can handle it. Like I'm not just stumbling in the dark. After all those heart-to-hearts with Mr. Mysterious, or should I say, my dad's old buddy, I'm seeing things a bit clearer. But while I'm finding some kind of peace, Jenna's world? It's starting to crumble. First, it's her job. She's been so caught up in this, find herself, quest that she's slacking at work. One day, she comes home, eyes red, and I know before she even says it. She's been fired. I'm not gonna lie. Part of me wants to say, told you so, but what good would that do? Then, her friends start drifting away. Turns out, this open marriage thing wasn't as cool with them as she thought. She's venting to me about it, and I'm just sitting there, thinking, welcome to my world, Jenna. But the kicker comes when her old flame, Mr. What If, turns out to be a total jerk. He's not interested in rekindling old love, he's just looking for a fling. Jenna's heartbroken, realizing she's thrown away so much for a fantasy. I watch all this happen, and man, it's a roller coaster. I'm torn between feeling sorry for her and feeling like it's karma. She sees how much she's lost, and she's desperate to make things right. She starts talking about fixing our marriage, going to counseling, trying to be the family we were supposed to be. But I'm hesitant. Can you blame me? After all that's happened, it's not easy to just open my arms and say, sure, let's start over. Mr. Mysterious, he's still there with his advice. People change, but so do feelings, he says. Think about what you want, not what you're supposed to want. Man, if that isn't the hardest advice to follow. I'm watching Jenna trying to pick up the pieces of her life, and it's like watching a movie. Part of me wants her to find her way back, but another part of me, the part that's been hurt and betrayed, isn't sure if that's what I want anymore. It's a mess, dude. A real mess. But life's like that sometimes, isn't it? Just when you think you've got it all figured out, it throws you a curveball. After all the drama, the heartache, and the revelations, I found myself at a crossroads. It was time to turn the page, start a new chapter. You know, new beginnings and all that jazz. So, here's the deal. Jenna and we tried to patch things up, but it was like trying to glue a broken vase back together. Sure, it kinda looks whole, but it's never the same. We decided to go our separate ways. Tough? Yeah. Necessary? Absolutely. But don't think it was all doom and gloom. Something good came out of this whole mess. Remember that colleague of mine, Sarah? We'd always been good friends, but in the midst of my turmoil, she was there for me, like a rock. We'd grab coffee, talk about everything and nothing. It was easy, you know? No drama, no walking on eggshells. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was looking at her in a way I hadn't before. It wasn't just friendship anymore, there was something more. She felt it, too. We took it slow at first, testing the waters, making sure it wasn't just a rebound thing. But, dude, it was like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. With Sarah, I could be me, without any pretenses or masks. We laughed, shared stories, and, yeah, fell for each other, hard. It was nothing like what I had with Jenna. This was something real, something deep. And the best part? My little girl, she adores Sarah. They clicked from the get-go. Seeing them together, laughing and playing, it fills my heart in a way I can't even describe. I started rediscovering myself too. Picked up my guitar again, started playing at this little bar on weekends. Felt good, you know? Getting back to my roots, doing what I love. Sarah was my biggest cheerleader, always front row, cheering me on. Life was good, man. Really good. I was healing, finding joy in the simple things. My days with Jenna felt like a distant memory, a chapter from a book I'd long closed. Sure, there were challenges. Divorce is never easy, and co-parenting, that's a whole other ballgame. But Sarah, she was with me every step of the way, supporting me, loving me. So, yeah, new beginnings. It's not just a cliche, it's real. Life threw me a curveball, but I caught it and threw it right back. I found happiness, love, and a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. Here we are at the end of the road of this wild story. Man, what a ride it's been. If you told me a year ago that I'd be where I am now, I'd have laughed in your face. But life, huh? Full of surprises. So, I'm settled into this new life now, and let me tell you, it feels good. Really good. There's this lightness in my steps, a smile on my face most days. Sure, there's still the occasional rough patch, but nothing like before. Sarah and I, we're going strong. She's incredible, man. The kind of woman who makes you want to be a better man. And my daughter, she's growing up so fast, smart as a whip, and happy. Seeing her laugh, watching her play without a care in the world, it's everything to me. I've learned a lot, been through the ringer, you might say. But all that, the pain, the confusion, the heartache, it's made me who I am today. Stronger, wiser, more appreciative of the good things in life. Looking back, I see all the moments that led me here. The hard conversations with Jenna, the late-night chats with Mr. Mysterious, the tears, the laughter, it's all part of my story. And you know what, I wouldn't change a thing. Jenna and I, we're in a good place now. Not like before, but it's respectful, friendly even. We co-parent like champs, putting our daughter first. It's not the family I pictured, but it's a family all the same. And Mr. Mysterious, well, he's still around, tending to his roses, doling out wisdom. Turns out, he was more than just a neighbor, he was a lifeline when I was drowning. I owe him a lot. I've picked up some new hobbies, too. Started hiking, getting out into nature. Clears the mind, you know? And the music, it's back in my life, bigger than ever. Sarah and I sometimes jam together. She's got a voice that could melt the coldest heart, I swear. I guess what I'm trying to say is, life goes on. It changes, it challenges, but it also gives. Gives you chances to grow, to love, to find happiness in places you never thought to look. So, here I am, looking forward to whatever comes next. A little older, a little wiser, and a whole lot happier. The past? It's behind me. The future? It's looking bright, my friend. Bright and full of hope. All right, so here's the deal. I found myself tangled up in this wild affair for about 6 months. Crazy, right? It wasn't something I planned or anything. It's like one of those things that just sort of happened before you even realize it. He was something else. My lover, this guy with a grin that could honestly light up the darkest corners of any room. And those eyes, oh man, you could get lost in them. We'd meet up in the sneakiest of ways. I'm talking secret rendezvous in places you wouldn't even think of. There was this little cafe on the outskirts of town, tucked away from prying eyes. That was our spot. We'd sit in the back corner, sipping on coffee that was too strong, whispering and laughing like a couple of teenagers. Sometimes it was a late-night drive to nowhere, just us, the stars, and the open road. It felt like we were in our little world. But let me tell you, every single time, there was this thrill. A mix of excitement and fear, you know? Like, on one hand, there's this electric buzz in the air, this feeling that you're doing something so wildly out of character. But on the other hand, there's this constant, nagging worry. We were always looking over our shoulders, jumping at the slightest sound. The fear of getting caught was real. It was a rush, but it was also draining. Deep down, I always knew it was a ticking time bomb. This kind of thing, it never lasts. I mean, how could it? Sneaking around, lying, it takes its toll. But I was caught up in the moment, too far gone to really think about the endgame. There were moments, brief flashes of guilt when I thought about my husband. Yeah, I had a husband. A good man, steady and reliable. We had our routine, our comfortable life. But that was just it, it was too comfortable, too predictable. This affair, it was like a jolt of electricity. It made me feel alive in ways I hadn't felt in years. But let's be real, nothing built on lies and secrets can stand for long. I think I always knew that, somewhere deep down. Yet, I let it continue, let myself get swept up in this whirlwind of passion and excitement. It was an escape, a break from reality. And boy, did I pay the price for it? So, that's the beginning of my story. A secret affair, a life turned upside down, and a whole lot of mess to clean up. It's funny how life works, isn't it? You think you know what you want, you chase after it with everything you've got, and then when you finally get it, you realize it's not at all what you needed. But hey, that's a tale for another chapter. For now, let's just say that this was the start of a journey I never expected to take. Okay, so let me take you to this one day, the day everything changed. I started feeling like my husband was onto me. You know that gut-wrenching fear that just grips you? Yeah, that. I felt like he was piecing things together, getting suspicious about my late nights and flimsy excuses. I was in a real jam. I figured I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just keep sneaking around, it was eating me up inside. So, I decided to drop this massive bombshell. I told him I wanted a divorce. Yeah, just like that. I wanted to be with my new love, the guy who made my heart race. Crazy, right? Now, my husband, he's this stoic kind of guy, keeps his cards close to his chest. When I told him, he just sat there, looking at me with this unreadable expression. It was like he was trying to process what I just said, but his face gave nothing away. I couldn't tell if he was heartbroken, angry, or maybe even relieved. That was the scariest part, not knowing what he felt. Telling him was one of the hardest things I've ever done. We built a life together, you know? It wasn't all sunshine and roses, but it was our life. And there I was, about to turn it all upside down. Part of me felt guilty, like I was betraying not just him, but everything we'd built. But another part of me felt this relief, like I was finally being honest, at least with myself. I remember he finally spoke after what felt like an eternity. His voice was calm, almost too calm. He asked me if I was sure, if this was really what I wanted. It wasn't an accusation or anything, just a simple question. But it hit me hard. Was I sure? I thought I was, but seeing him right there, hearing his voice, I suddenly wasn't so certain. Despite my doubts, I stuck to my decision. I told him yes, this was what I wanted. It was a lie, sort of. I mean, I wanted to be with my lover, but I wasn't sure about everything else. It's not like I hadn't thought about the consequences, but at that moment, they felt distant, like they were someone else's problem. So, there it was, my decision laid out in the open. I had chosen a path, and there was no turning back. I had set in motion a series of events that would change everything. Little did I know just how much everything would change. Looking back, I realized that making that decision was just the beginning. It set off a chain reaction of events that I could never have predicted. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you, and let me tell you, I was about to get a whole bunch of them. But that's a story for another chapter. For now, let's just say that this decision, as hard as it was just the tip of the iceberg. Dear readers, I hope you're as hooked on this journey as I was living it. Before we dive into the next chapter of this roller coaster story, I've got a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying this tale of love, adventure, and unexpected twists, how about showing some love? Hit that like button to let me know you're on board. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to me. It's like a virtual high five, telling me to keep the stories coming. And hey, why stop there? Go ahead and hit subscribe too. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming up next. Subscribing will keep you in the loop, so you're always the first to know when a new chapter drops. Plus, it's a great way to support this storyteller on his quest to keep you entertained. So, take a quick second to like and subscribe. Done? Awesome. Now, buckle up and let's jump back into the story. The next chapter's waiting, and trust me, you don't want to miss a beat of what's coming up next. Alright, so here's where things get really twisted. Picture this. I'm 3 months into my so-called new life, still trying to get my bearings, and then bam. Out of nowhere, my lover decides to call it quits. And you're not gonna believe this, he left me for someone younger. Yeah, talk about a cliché, right? But, there I was, completely and utterly devastated. I mean, we had plans, you know? Dreams that we'd spun together, late at night, whispering about the future. We talked about traveling, exploring the world, just the two of us against everyone else. It was like we were building our little fairy tale. But fairy tales don't always have happy endings, do they? When he told me, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It was so sudden, so unexpected. I kept asking myself, how could this happen? How could he just walk away like that? But, deep down, I knew the answer. These kinds of relationships, built on secrets and stolen moments, they aren't meant to last. It hit me hard, the gravity of what I'd lost. Not just him, but my entire life as I knew it. I'd left my husband, turned my back on the life we'd built, all for this. This illusion of love. And for what? To end up alone, feeling more lost than ever. The days following the breakup were rough. I was a mess, trying to piece together my shattered dreams. I'd look at myself in the mirror and hardly recognize the woman staring back. I had given up everything for a man who just tossed me aside like yesterday's news. The irony wasn't lost on me. You know, I kept thinking about my husband during those days. Wondering what he was doing, how he was coping with everything. There was this part of me, this tiny, whispering voice, that wondered if I had made a huge mistake. But, pride's a tricky thing. It kept me from picking up the phone, from reaching out and trying to fix what I had broken. So there I was, stuck in this limbo of my own making. I had chased after something I thought I wanted, only to find out it was just a mirage. And now, I was paying the price. This chapter of my life, it taught me some hard lessons. About love, about life, and about the consequences of our choices. I thought I knew what I was doing, but life has a way of showing you just how little you know. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The story gets even crazier from here. But hey, that's for the next chapter. For now, let's just say that this unexpected twist was just the beginning of a long, winding road of self-discovery and, well, a whole lot of regret. Okay, so here's where things really start to spiral. I'm 3 months into what I thought would be my happily ever after, but life has other plans. My lover's gone, and I'm left picking up the pieces of my so-called new life. It's like waking up from a dream and realizing it was all a fantasy. Now, picture me, a total mess, realizing the magnitude of the blunder I'd made. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I lost everything chasing a mirage. So, in a desperate move, I decide to do the only thing that makes sense to me at the time. I try to go back to my husband. Yeah, talk about a reality check. I went to him, practically on my knees. I'm talking full-on pleading, apologizing for everything. I told him it was all a huge mistake, that I never should have left. I was ready to do anything to make things right again, but it was like talking to a wall. You could almost hear the echo of my words bouncing off him. He had changed, and who could blame him? He was no longer the man I left, he was someone who had moved on from the storm I had caused. And the look in his eyes, man, it was like he couldn't even recognize me anymore. There was this distance, this coldness that wasn't there before. It was heart-wrenching, you know? To see the pain and the indifference in his eyes. It made me realize just how much I had hurt him, how selfish my actions had been. All those years we spent together, and I just threw it away for a fling that went up in smoke. So, there I was, trying to salvage what was left of my marriage, but it was too late. The bridge was burned, and there was no going back. He made it clear that he couldn't trust me again, that too much had happened for us to start over. And the worst part? I knew he was right. This chapter of my life was like a wake-up call. It made me realize that sometimes, when you make a choice, you have to live with the consequences, no matter how much you wish you could turn back time. It's one thing to make a mistake, it's another to face up to it. I learned the hard way that some things, once broken, can't be put back together. No amount of regret or realization can undo certain choices. It was a lesson in humility, in understanding the impact of my actions on others. And that's not even the end of it. The story takes more twists and turns from here. But as for this chapter, let's just say it was a period of hard truths and even harder lessons. I had to come to terms with the fact that I had lost my husband, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And that was a pill too bitter to swallow. Where I'm grappling with this harsh, in-your-face kind of truth. I was alone, and not just in the, I need some me time, way. I mean truly, utterly alone. It was just me and a truckload of memories from a life that I, in all my wisdom, had decided to blow up. Talk about a reality check. My husband, the guy the first had shared years of my life with, had turned the page. He started a new chapter, one where I was just a footnote, a thing of the past. It was like watching a movie of your life where you're no longer the main character. And let me tell you, that's a tough pill to swallow. I spent days, weeks, heck, even months, trying to make sense of it all. I was living in this haze, going through the motions, but not really living. My house felt like a museum of what once was. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders of the life we had built together, now just echoes in empty rooms. It's strange, you know, when you're left alone with your thoughts. You start to really dive into the choices you've made. And boy, did I dive deep. I replayed every argument, every sweet moment, every crossroad where I could have chosen differently. But the thing about the past is, it's like a different country, you can't go back. I tried to reach out to friends, but it was awkward. They had all chosen sides, and guess what? Most of them weren't on team me. I don't blame them, really. From the outside looking in, I was the villain of my own story. I had walked away from a good man, a stable life, for what? A fling that fizzled out faster than a cheap firework. Night after night, I'd sit by the window, looking out at the world moving on without me. People going about their lives, laughing, loving. And there I was, stuck in this self-made purgatory. It's in moments like these that you really start to question who you are, what you want, and what really matters in life. The harsh truth that I had to face was that I had done this to myself. I had chosen this path, and now I had to walk it, no matter how thorny it was. My husband, the man I thought I'd grow old with, was now a stranger, living his life without a backward glance. This chapter of my life, it was all about coming to terms with the consequences of my actions. It was a time of reflection, of understanding the ripple effect of the choices we make. I had to learn to live with myself, with the knowledge of what I had done, and somehow find a way to move forward. And trust me, moving forward wasn't easy. It was a journey full of bumps and bruises, of learning and unlearning. This is where I hit rock bottom, where the harsh lessons really start to sink in. By this point, I'd lost it all, my husband, my lover, even my sense of who I was. I was back to square one, but with a whole new set of baggage. A heart heavy with regrets and a mind swirling with what-ifs. You know, they say hindsight is 20/20, and boy, were they right. Looking back, I could see all the missteps, all the wrong turns I took. It's like this montage of mistakes, playing over and over in my head. I lost the love of a good man, a man who had stood by me through thick and thin, for a fleeting romance that burned out faster than a shooting star. And here's the kicker, I didn't just lose them, I lost myself in the process. I used to know who I was, what I stood for. But after everything that went down, I couldn't even recognize the woman staring back at me in the mirror. I was a stranger to myself, and that, my friend, is a scary feeling. It's funny, in a not-so-funny way, how life can turn on a dime. One minute you think you have it all figured out, and the next, you're scrambling to pick up the pieces of a life you shattered with your own two hands. The world keeps spinning, but you're stuck, trapped in a past that you can't change and a future that looks nothing like what you had planned. The thing about hitting rock bottom, though, is that it gives you a different perspective. You start to see what really matters, what's truly important. It's not the whirlwind romances or the adrenaline rush of sneaking around. It's the quiet moments, the steady love, the things I took for granted and lost along the way. In those long, lonely nights, I'd find myself replaying everything, wondering how I could have been so blind, so reckless. I was racked with guilt, drowning in a sea of remorse. I kept thinking about all the what-ifs. What if I had stayed? What if I had been honest with myself and my husband from the start? But life doesn't have a rewind button. You can't go back and erase your mistakes, no matter how much you wish you could. So, there I was, at a bitter end of my own making. It was a tough pill to swallow, accepting that I had no one to blame but myself. I had to learn to live with my choices, to find a way to make peace with the chaos I had created. And trust me, that journey to peace, to finding myself again, it was a long and winding road. But that's a story for another day. For now, let's just say that Chapter 6 was about coming to terms with the consequences of my actions, about learning the hard way that some choices can't be undone, and some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. It was the end of one chapter and the reluctant beginning of another, a chapter where I had to learn to forgive myself and start over, one painful step